All right, ready to dive into another deep dive? Today, we're cracking open Spin Selling by Neil Rackham, a book that's practically a Bible for anyone in sales, especially if you're aiming to land those big, complex deals.
And what makes this book so valuable is that it's not just some sales guru's opinion. It's grounded in a massive research project. They analyzed over 35,000 sales calls, real data, not just anecdotal evidence.
35,000 calls, that's a lot of data. So what's the most surprising thing they learned about what works or doesn't work in those high-stakes sales situations?
Well, they actually found that a lot of common sales wisdom, particularly around closing techniques, can backfire when you're dealing with larger deals.
You mean like that whole always be closing, always on pressure?
Exactly. The research showed that in larger sales, more closing techniques often led to fewer sales.
Wait, hold on. More closing, less closing. How does that work?
Think about it from the buyer's perspective. If you're making a big decision, do you want someone pressuring you, or do you want a partner who understands your needs?
Right, no one wants to feel pushed into a corner, especially when it's a big purchase.
And the book gives a great example of this with a salesperson trying to close a deal for a large copying system. Instead of really digging into the customer's needs around cost and implementation, he just kept piling on product details and pushing for the close.
Oh, I've been there as a customer. It's overwhelming and honestly, kind of off-putting.
Yeah, and it's a common trap, especially for less experienced salespeople. They think if they just throw enough features and advantages at the customer, they'll be dazzled into buying. But that's not how it works with complex sales.
So, if always be closing is the wrong approach for big deals, what does Rackham suggest instead?
He introduces this idea of spin selling, which is all about asking the right questions throughout the sales process to uncover needs and guide the customer to the right solution.
Okay, so tell me more about this spin selling. What makes it so effective?
Well, SPIN stands for 4 types of questions: situation, problem, implication, and need payoff. And each one plays a specific role in understanding the customer and moving the sale forward in a consultative rather than pushy way.
Okay, let's break those down. Situation questions, that's just getting the basic information right.
Yeah, like what kind of software do you currently use, or how many people are in your department? Essential context, but doesn't really drive the sale on its own.
It's like going to the doctor and giving them your name and date of birth. Important, but it doesn't tell them what's wrong.
Exactly. That's where problem questions come in. This is where you start to uncover those pain points and challenges. What are some of the things you're struggling with in your current setup? Or what's the biggest bottleneck you're facing in this area?
So instead of just knowing they use a certain software, you're finding out if they're actually happy with it, and if not, why not?
You got it. And Rackham found a direct correlation between the number of problem questions asked and the success of the sale. The more you understand their pain, the better you can position your solution.
Makes sense. You can't offer a solution if you don't know the problem. So that's situation and problem questions. What about the other 2 parts of SIPON?
That's where things get really interesting and where we see the big difference between just closing a deal and building a lasting partnership. That's where implication and need payoff questions come in. Yeah, those first 2 types of SPIN questions really lay the groundwork, But now we're getting to the good stuff, implication questions and need payoff questions. This is where SPIN really shines.
All right, let's get into it. What makes implication questions so important?
So you've uncovered their problems, right? Now with implication questions, you help them see the bigger picture, like how much those problems might be costing them, or what could happen if they don't fix them, the risks, the missed opportunities, that sort of thing.
So it's not about fear-mongering. It's about helping them see the true cost of inaction.
Exactly. There's a great example in the book about a company with a really outdated phone system. They weren't happy with it, but they had just kind of learned to deal with it. But then the salesperson starts asking these implication questions. How much time are your employees wasting every day because of misdirected calls? How's that impacting your overall productivity? What kind of message does this outdated system send to your clients?
Suddenly that annoying phone system becomes a much bigger problem, right? Like a symbol of inefficiency and maybe even lost business.
Exactly. And once the customer has that aha moment, once they really understand the potential consequences, you can move on to the most powerful part of SPIN need payoff questions.
Okay, I'm ready. Tell me everything about need payoff questions.
This is where you get the customer to tell you the benefits of your solution, instead of you having to tell them. So instead of saying, our software is going to save you so much time, you'd ask, if you had a system that eliminated all those data entry errors, How much time do you think that would free up for your team?
I love that because when they say it, it's so much more powerful than if you had said it yourself.
Exactly. And Rackham found that the most successful salespeople use need-payoff questions way more than average salespeople.
It's like you're planting a seed and they're the ones watering it and watching it grow. It's not about manipulation, it's about helping them discover the value for themselves.
Right. And here's another interesting thing about need-payoff questions. They're not just for selling to customers, they're also really useful for what Rackham calls internal selling.
Internal selling. What's that?
Think about the kinds of big sales we've been talking about. It's usually not just one person making the decision, right? There are often multiple stakeholders involved.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Getting everyone on the same page can definitely be a challenge.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So internal selling is about giving your champion, the person you're directly selling to, the tools they need to sell your solution to others within their organization.
I see. So it's kind of like giving them the talking points, but in a way that's directly tied to their needs and the needs of their organization.
Exactly. Need-payoff questions help you arm your champion to become your internal advocate, which can be incredibly powerful in those larger sales.
That's brilliant. Now, this is all great stuff, but it also sounds like it takes some practice, right? You can't just walk in there and start firing off SPN questions and expect it to work perfectly.
You're absolutely right. Rackham talks a lot about the importance of planning and preparation. You need to really think through the types of problems your product or service solves and brainstorm some implication and need-payoff questions that will resonate with your target customer.
So it's about having a strategy, not just winging it.
Exactly. And the more you practice, the more natural these questions will become.
Okay, so we've covered the power of the spin questions, but I'm guessing there's more to closing those big deals than just asking the right questions at the beginning, right?
You're right. You could nail the spin and questioning strategy and still fumble when it comes to actually presenting your solution.
So how do we avoid that trap? Is there a right way and a wrong way to talk about our products or services?
This is where Rackham's insights on features, advantages, and benefits come into play. It might seem like basic sales 101, but he offers a fresh perspective that can be a real game changer, especially with those larger, more complex sales we've been discussing.
Okay, I'm all ears. Let's talk about features, advantages, and benefits and how they play into closing those big deals. All right, let's talk about features, advantages, and benefits. I feel like I've heard those terms a million times, but I have a feeling Rackham has some deeper insights about how they apply to bigger sales.
Yeah, it's not just about knowing the difference between them. It's about knowing when and how to use them effectively. What works in a small, quick sale might totally backfire when you're trying to build a long-term relationship.
Okay, so let's start with features. That's just the straightforward stuff about your product, right? Like, our software has automated reporting. Doesn't necessarily get anyone excited on its own.
Right. And then there's that classic distinction between advantages and benefits. An advantage explains how a feature can help the customer in a general way. So you might say, our automated reporting will save you time.
Which sounds good, but it's still kind of vague.
Exactly. Now, a benefit directly connects that feature to an explicit need that the customer has already told you about. It answers the question, so what? What does that mean for me? So instead of just saying it saves time, you'd say something like, remember how you said you're always struggling to meet those monthly reporting deadlines? Our automated reporting would free up your team's time so you can hit those deadlines without the stress.
Now that's powerful because you're not just talking about your product in a vacuum, you're connecting it directly to their pain point.
Exactly. And here's what's interesting. While advantages can be somewhat effective in smaller sales, Rackham's research showed that they actually lose their impact and can even hurt you as the sale gets bigger.
Really? Why is that? I'd think that highlighting anything positive about your product would be a good thing.
It comes down to a couple of reasons. First, advantages tend to trigger objections because you're basically presenting solutions before you fully develop the need.
It's like offering someone a Band-Aid before they've even told you if they have a cut.
Right. And second, focusing too much on advantages can shift the conversation away from the customer's needs and back onto your product. It becomes a feature dump, which we know isn't effective for building real value in those more complex sales.
It takes them out of that mindset of discovering their needs and how your solution fits in.
Exactly. And that's why those benefits, the statements that are tied directly to their explicit needs, are so powerful. They show that you've really listened and understood their situation.
And the beauty of Specie is that Those need-payoff questions naturally lead you to those benefits. The customer has already told you what they need, you're just connecting the dots.
Exactly. And here's another crucial point. When you focus on benefits instead of advantages, you're less likely to get objections in the first place. Rackham calls this objection prevention, which is always better than having to handle objections after they come up.
Makes sense. It's like you're addressing their concerns before they even have a chance to voice them.
Right. And this all ties into another key insight from the book, which is that the bigger the problem you solve for the customer, the less price is an issue. Spin helps you uncover those big problems so you can position your solution as a valuable investment, not just another cost.
So if you're constantly getting pushback on price, it might not be about your pricing. It might be about how well you've conveyed the value of what you're offering.
Exactly. And one final point that trips people up, even experienced salespeople, especially with new product launches, is what Rackham calls the bells and whistles approach.
Oh, I know that one. It's so easy to get caught up in the excitement of a new product and just want to tell everyone about all the cool new features.
Exactly. But you can't forget to tie those features back to the customer's real-world problems. It's like giving someone a Swiss Army knife with every attachment imaginable when all they really need is a simple screwdriver.
Right. And they end up overwhelmed instead of excited.
Exactly. So even with a new product, you have to start by understanding the problems it solves. Use those thespian questions to figure out their needs and then present the benefits that really resonate with them.
So what's the key takeaway you want listeners to walk away with today?
For me, the biggest lesson is that spin selling is more than just a set of techniques. It's a mindset shift. It's about approaching every interaction with curiosity, really listening to understand your customers' challenges and guiding them to a solution that genuinely makes their life better.
It's about building relationships and trust, not just closing deals.
Exactly. And the best part is these principles apply beyond sales. They can help you be a better communicator in all areas of life.
And there you have it, folks. A deep dive into the power of spin selling and how it can transform your approach to sales, especially those big, complex deals.
Remember, it all starts with asking the right questions and really listening to understand your customers' needs.
So the next time you're facing a challenging sales situation, think of those spin questions and how you can frame your solution in terms of the benefits that matter most to your customer. Until next time, happy selling.